I'm Danielle, your host of the Abridged to Motherhood podcast, the place where moms like you learn to thrive, not just survive through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. I'm a birth and postpartum doula and a mom of two who's been where you are. My first pregnancy was filled with so much excitement, but it was also marked by stress, anxiety, and fear of the unknown. I thought I had everything mapped out, but when postpartum hit, I realized how unprepared I was for the physical, emotional, and mental toll of motherhood. It was overwhelming, lonely, and nothing like I imagined. When I found out I was pregnant again, I knew I needed to approach things differently. I made it my mission to not only prepare for postpartum, but to prioritize myself in the process. That shift changed everything. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Whether you're navigating your first pregnancy, feeling buried under endless advice, or struggling to figure out what you actually need for postpartum, this podcast is your safe space. You'll find practical tips, honest conversations, and expert insights to help you feel informed, supported, and empowered through every stage of motherhood. If you're ready to feel confident, prepared, and truly supported in your motherhood journey, stick around. This is for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the Abridged to Motherhood podcast. I'm really excited for you to hear the episode today with Lori Atwood. We are talking all about our finances, budgeting, planning, and thriving financially for our children. And our conversation was so much more than just about money. It was also a lot about our mindset too. So let me tell you a little bit about Lori. She created her company, Fearless Finance, to make expert, fiduciary, hourly financial planning accessible to everyone. No sales, no commissions, no asset minimums, no judgment. And they are nationwide and have over 2,000 clients and are registered with the SEC. You can look her up under Atwood Financial Planning. She launched her company in 2016, and before that, she has had a 25-year career in finance, in telecom, investment banking in Europe, and then as CFO of an internet company and private equity. She holds a BA from UPenn and a master's from Georgetown, so she knows her stuff, friends, and I love her business model because sometimes you just need some hourly advice and you don't need to hand over all of your assets to a company. You just want someone to walk with you through a certain season that you're going through. Maybe you are staying home for the first time with your kids. You're planning to stay home. You want to maybe quit your job so you can stay home or go part-time, or you are wanting to do some updates to your house. They will walk through any of that with you. I really enjoyed our conversation. She has an 18-year-old daughter, so she's like walked through all the different stages of parenthood. So it was just a really great conversation. And without further ado, let's dive in. Lori, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm really excited to have you. And I would love for you to just start by telling us how you got started in your business and why you decided to specialize in financial planning specifically.
So I've spent my entire career in finance since graduate school, that is. And I was working for other people, and then I had my daughter, and I really wanted to work for myself. And she was born right around the Great Recession, which I can't believe how long ago that is now. And since I was in finance, my husband was like, you're never going to get a bonus in the next couple of years because it's just the economy is such a mess. Why don't you resign? And so we tightened our belts and I resigned, and I was home with her for 3 years, which, was certainly a privilege, but it was really worthwhile to do. And so in that time, I was like, what do I want to do next? What can I do? I knew I was always going to be the primary parent because my husband works till like 10 every night. And I was like, okay, my gosh, all right, what am I going to do? And I knew I wanted to have my own business. And so I started doing videos, parenting videos, things like detangling hair and worrying about bullying and that kind of thing. And I'd interview experts, and the information was really good, but it was a little boring. And so I was like, I've got to fix the format. So I called everyone I knew and I said, can I give a financial planning, a free seminar and videotape myself? Because financial planning was the only thing that I knew well enough to give a seminar on. And I did. And people just kept coming up to me afterwards saying, asking if I took clients. And that's how this business was born. So it was serendipity. It was luck.
I love that it came out of you just trying something new and different, and it
Hmm.
came out of being willing to take a risk too,
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
staying home and then figuring out what you were good at and harnessing that skill, because so many of us moms are wanting that freedom, wanting to work for ourselves and be there for our kids. So that's just really inspiring to me, and I'm sure it will be to a lot of our listeners as well. And I think finances can be probably one of the biggest stressors when
Yeah.
you are adding a baby to your family.
Hmm.
So I'd like to just start with that. As you find out you're pregnant and you're adding a baby to the family, where do you recommend moms start when they're preparing for that?
So it's a great question. When you're pregnant, you're kind of like all about it, you're in that, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful stage. And what we all have to remember is that there are people who are building their careers on selling you stuff in whatever phase you're in. And so I like to remind people, especially new moms and new parents, not just moms, new parents, all that child needs is for you to be calm and not stressed out and an appropriate car seat.
Yes.
So let's assume somebody takes care of the appropriate car seat, right? They don't need all the other stuff. They don't need heated wipes. They don't need binky holders. They don't need any of that stuff. What they need is for you to be calm and present and unstressed. And so that's the financial advice. Don't fall prey to all of the stuff that everybody's supposed to need, because all that's going to do is create more stress. And your kid's not going to remember the binky holder. What he or she is going to remember is mommy wasn't calm.
I always say support over stuff. And
Yeah,
we live in such a consumeristic society at this point that we think we need the highest end stroller and we need all of these different things in order for our parenting journey to be easier, less difficult for us when our job is just to be responsive to our child. But it's so ingrained in our society
yeah.
that even as a doula, I will often give that advice, but people still end up buying all of
They don't
this,
take the advice.
all
Yeah,
of
they
the
don't take
stuff.
it. Yeah.
But it's such good advice because it's so easy for that bill to just rack up so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, so my daughter is a senior in high school now. I only have one child. She's a senior in high school now. And so when I had her, so we're talking about 15, 16 years ago, I was going to, the big box baby store. I don't know, wherever you live in the country, it's got a different name, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. And what I noticed is that it was about $400 a month for the first 4 to 6 months of that child's life on the stuff, the divided plates and the appropriate nail clipper. And a lot of times parents will buy that stuff while pregnant, and you don't know who this kid is.
Hmm.
If you had my kid hated the stroller. All she wanted to do was get out and walk. She hated it. And so for us, spending a bunch of money on a stroller was a real, unnecessary thing. And I didn't. I got a hand me down from a friend, and it was not pretty, but it did what we needed it to do. And she was a walker. She just was like that.
Hmm.
So wait on the bigger things. Get to know your child, figure it out so you don't have a lot of waste.
That's great advice too. And even if you're getting items at your baby shower, something that I tried to do was I left as much as I could in the original packaging
Yeah, there you go.
because same idea, right?
Mhm.
I knew I wanted to wait and see what was going to happen with baby before I opened things up so that I was able to return them and then get things I really needed, like diapers.
Exactly. Things that really mattered. Yeah.
hmm So I think this leads really nicely into my next question because you're kind of talking about one mistake that we can make, but what are some other common mistakes that you see new parents make with their money and their finances in those early years?
So my husband always says to me that I am the person who says the quiet part out loud. So here I go, and I'm going to do it. So many young parents, they're so overwhelmed. And if things are not what they thought they would be, or things are harder, or the child is not who they thought even it's not the gender that they expected if they didn't know beforehand. Whatever any of those reasons are, a lot of times parents are like, let me just get the kid in a gajillion activities, and then that reduces the time I need to be there. And what my advice is don't fall prey to that. If you need support because you're just not getting a break, that's legit. Figure out how you can get a break, maybe by a relative or a college kid that comes in and babysits, whatever it is. Don't just start packing on activities and things to do because you don't know what to do. And so that's one thing that people fall prey to, and they end up just spending tons on activities and keeping the kid busy. And really all the kid wants is like the Tupperware in your drawer
Ain't that the
and
truth?
and yeah, and the wooden spoons in the kitchen. Yeah, it's very expensive and sleep.
That is so true. I see that time and time again with travel,
Mhm.
sports culture too, as they get older.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh, the sports. Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with John Deloney at all, but he's a psychologist who works alongside Dave Ramsey.
Oh,
So, and
goodness. I'm not a fan, but okay.
but
Yeah.
he talks a lot about that culture of like the
Mhm.
travel sports and the activities and constantly keeping kids busy and just the detriment that that can be not only financially but psychologically
I
too.
agree completely. I agree completely. And just by way of anecdote, my kid it was like my kid has a December birthday. And so all those summer fun things, they're off limits to us. It's just too cold to do anything outside. And she was really into horseback riding. She was about 9 years old. I think it was like her ninth birthday. And we actually like at the local like horse place, we rented a couple of hours. We invited, six or seven or eight kids. And then they called me that morning. They're like, it's raining. We can't do this in the rain.
Mm,
And I'm like, goodness gracious, what do I do? So I ran to Target and I got Pin the Tail on the Donkey. I got a few other little games, Twister. And I had a cake already planned, and I brought everything back to the house. And I'm like, girls, have at it. There's stuff to color, there's all kinds of stuff to play Twister, you can do all that. And one little girl came up to me at the end and she's like, this was the best party ever.
mm, love
And
it.
I was like, huh. And it's because it wasn't structured. I let them do the things they wanted to do. They were in a safe house. The weather, like we didn't care about the weather, and that was it. And it's a lesson I've taken with me throughout the rest of her life is like, it doesn't have to be fancy. Simple
Yeah.
is good.
We overcomplicate things
Yeah.
so much. So, as we are moving into parenthood, what are some of the important conversations that we should be having financially with our partners
Yeah.
and maybe a planner? What are some of those things that we should be thinking about?
So there are a couple things that you should either have in place prior to birth or like right after, as soon as you come out of the haze. I need a will. You must have a will, and your spouse has to have a will executed, properly executed. You've got to have appropriate life insurance, term life insurance. Anything that does not have TERM in the title is wrong. You don't need all the fancy universal and this and that. Just term life insurance for that kid. So those things are far, again, with the exception of the car seat, are by far the most important things to have for your child. So once you've got those things in place, then we want to, if you think this kid's going to be a college bound kid, we want to open the 529, whatever state you're living in. You want the savings account there. If you think that kid is going to go to a private college and not the school that's in your state, you should be saving about $600 a month, believe it or not, to that account. If you think your kid is a public college kid, great. I would do easily $300 to $400 per month per kid, and just get that stuff started. And then secondarily, well, I don't want to even say secondarily, in that category, primarily important, your retirement,
Mm-hmm.
because Junior does not want to take care of you. That's the best gift because he's not going to remember the Legos, but he'll
Yeah.
know if he has to pay for you when you're in retirement. Trust me, he'll know because he's going to be having she will be having kids then and trying to pay for a lot of other stuff. So get your retirement right. Get yourself right. You know that whole airplane thing, get your mask on before you. That is 100% correct when it comes to finance.
Yes. And thankfully, we had someone give us all of that same advice. So we got our life insurance done and our wills done prior to having
Good.
our first. And I was so glad that we did that because as she came along and number two came along, right, there's more expenses. And
Yep.
I feel like it would have been easy to say, oh, no, we can't afford to have another monthly bill like our life insurance.
Yeah.
Um, whereas once it was set up, it's just been going
Yeah.
for that
I,
whole time.
it's, you know what? I'm trying to think of a monthly bill that would come ahead of that, to be
Yeah,
honest, other than rent or mortgage,
right.
because when you've had as many clients as I have, you've had people pass away
Hmm.
while the kids are young.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's so sad in
It's
those cases
heartbreaking.
because it is so important that we take care of our families throughout throughout our lives. And like you said, taking care of your own retirement first. That's also a piece of advice that we got was
Yeah.
make sure you do take care of your own retirement before you do a 529 for
Oh,
your
yes.
kids.
Oh, yes. If you're doing what you need to do on retirement, open the 529. There's going to be some way to pay for college, but there's nothing anyone can do if you arrive at retirement and you're materially undersaved.
Mm-hmm, for sure. So let's talk about maybe budgeting. I think
Yeah.
that's a huge topic. And if you haven't been taught to budget, it can feel very overwhelming. So,
Mhm.
can you just talk a little bit about budgeting and maybe what that looks like once, I don't know, for somebody starting out, and then maybe some budget items that they haven't thought through with having a child and how to budget for those things too?
So the first question is how to budget. And I hate budgets, and I do this for a living. So what I tell people and what I do in my own home is, the cable bill and gas in the car and the utilities, they go up and down a little here and there, and the utilities may cross in the seasons if you live in a place that has seasons, but they're super predictable.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same every month. What isn't the same every month is what you spend on groceries, because there's some crazy that we all feel about food, which I'm sure is
Mm-hmm.
like deep in our limbic system somewhere, right? And two, your full discretionary spending. What's in full discretionary? It's all the stuff you open your wallet for. It's clothes, it's Amazon, it's household goods, obviously entertainment, it's Ubers, it's children's activities. It's anything that is not academic or medical, or the basic housing and utilities and paying if you have student debt or whatever it is. So that's full discretionary, and that changes wildly sometimes month to month. And what I find is that people have no idea what they're spending on that. And so what I ask people to do what we do in my firm if you come see us, but if not, just grab a spreadsheet or a pencil and paper, whatever you're comfortable with. Take the money that you have coming in after taxes and benefits and retirement are taken out for you and your spouse if you have a spouse, if not just you. Subtract the housing costs, subtract all the utilities, all the contractual obligations, insurance payments, debt payments, right? Subtract the cable bill, the internet, the stuff, the gas in the car, parking if you need to park where you work, whatever it is. Subtract if you're doing therapy, subtract the therapy, any other, maybe your kid has occupational therapy or whatever is going on. Subtract all of that and see what is left. Now, you also need to make a list of large annual expenses because what people forget is travel and camp. You don't have that for newborns, obviously, but it comes pretty quick. You may be big holiday gift givers. You may have larger insurances that come every year instead of on a monthly basis. Make a list of those too and divide it by 12 so you know what you need for those annual expenses per month. You need to adjust the discretionary amount based on what's left so that you, one, have a discretionary amount. And I'm happy to tell you what would be typical for different size families, and that you two have enough to put aside for those large annual expenses, and that you three have something to save every month. Now, I don't care if it's $200 a month that you're saving or 2,000. I'd love it to be 2,000, but it's got to be something so that you're habitually saving, general savings, not retirement. That's different. And that's where people go wrong. And then you need to track it. And the only thing you need to track is the discretionary spending in the groceries, because those are the ones that can radically go up and down. And then you do away with budgets because the amount you spend on clothing is different each month. The amount you spend on eating out could be different. Maybe some relatives come to visit, you eat out more, whatever. So having line item by line item is going to drive you crazy. I know it drives me crazy.
I like that because it's a little bit of a more simplified way to look at
Much.
your budget. This is the X amount of dollars we have for discretionary funds, and once that's done for the month, it's done.
Yeah,
That makes it,
that's exactly right.
yeah, that makes it a lot easier to think about because I'm a line item budget girl and always have been, but it gets tedious.
Yeah, and it can be difficult. Like if you have $200 for clothing, you have $200 for entertainment that month, and you really want to do this one thing, you're not going to spend it on clothing. You've got to move the dough around. And so if
Exactly.
it's one pool of full discretionary spending that you and your spouse or partner are aware of, then you can, one, use it interchangeably because money's fungible, and two, communicate better because you can say things like, hey, I got to get the kids all their winter, shoes and coats and hats and stuff. So let's go easy on eating out
Mm-hmm.
this month. And so there's no yelling, there's no blaming. You forewarned, your partner can forewarn you, hey, I've got this thing coming up and I need to do, it's like whatever it is. Can you hold back on buying for the kids this month and we'll do it next month? That's the trade-offs. Once you get to those trade-offs, you're bulletproof.
Mm, love that. Let's talk about savings because you mentioned that before. What are some simple ways to get that savings going? Because I'm telling you, all the conversations with my friends I'm having right now doesn't sound like any of us, we're all
Anybody's
struggling.
saving.
Yeah, we're all struggling to save at this point. So give us
Yeah.
give us all the advice.
Yeah. Well, prices have gone up. It's legit to be struggling with your cash flow on a monthly basis. So the first thing is to do what I said a minute ago, which is to make that list and see, and then reduce discretionary spending so that you can save. And whatever that number is, like I said, maybe that number is $100 a month. Then set up an auto transfer to a separate account. A high yield savings account is my preference, but whatever, and get it out of your checking. It'll get spent in the checking. The checking account is like a vortex. It
Isn't
just
that the
is,
truth?
it's like
Yes.
its own being. So you don't want it in there. So get it out. And then, and I likewise, I recommend to people that they also have a separate account for those large annual expenses. And that way, when camp comes where I live, you pay for camp January and May, right? And so when that big bill comes, you're not like frantic. You
Mm-hmm.
know the money's sitting there, you write the check or you pay however you pay.
I love the auto
Automate,
pay. Yes. Because we
automate.
do that with our bills, so why not do it
Hmm.
with our savings? And
Yep.
like you said, looking at that discretionary income and sometimes in certain seasons, I stayed at home and didn't work at all for a year and there wasn't that discretionary income during that time. There's seasons of sacrifice, but then there are also seasons of working hard and being able to forge ahead. And we worked hard before that to have the savings so that I could stay home too. But it
That's absolutely true.
takes a lot of foresight. It really
It
does.
takes a lot of planning. And I know in our case, when for the 3 years that I was home, my husband makes a good living, but I mean, it's like still a challenge. You
Hmm.
still need to cut back. We didn't go on big vacations. We went on car vacations. And who wants to go on a fancy vacation with an infant anyway, in my opinion? But that's just me. We didn't do a lot of the stuff that other people did, and we were totally happy because I got to be home with her
Hmm.
and that was the our priority and we agreed it. And so I can't tell you enough how important it is to be deliberate and plan. Don't respond.
Yes, that's so true. And so let's talk about that. A lot of my listeners are pregnant. So if they're planning for their maternity leave and there's going to be a loss of income, most likely,
Mostly that's true. Yeah.
or maybe they're deciding they're going to take a year off or a few years off and stay home, how can they start planning ahead now to reduce that financial
I'm
stress?
so thrilled you asked this question because it doesn't get asked enough. So, if for most people, they have to go on their short-term disability, which is usually 6 weeks. And then if they want to take another 6 weeks off, which is typical, again, your situation may vary, it's unpaid. So that's a month and a half. And so, again, everything goes back to that same list of what you're earning and what your expenses are. So then you don't need to save in those couple of months when you're not working, but you need to know what income needs to be replaced. And so if you have to replace, I don't know, I'm going to pull this number out of the air, $3,000 a month, and you want to take another 6 months off, that's 18K. That's no joke for most people. So
Right.
if you don't have people, that is something, in fact, that I recommend that young couples put on the baby shower list. Get it on the baby shower list. If you have people who are willing to give you gifts in that way, fabulous. Do it. Otherwise, you need to be saving either before pregnancy or during pregnancy to cover that amount of money. There's
Absolutely.
no secret here.
No. And granted, most of us are planning for a child, but there are surprises.
Yeah, of
So
course.
when that surprises pop up, if you find out you're pregnant, you've got 9 months. What's
Yeah.
your advice in that situation?
Well, you've got once you find out, and you usually find out a few weeks into it, especially if it's unplanned, you've got about 8 months. You're going to have to wring the rag dry or whatever. You're going to have to save as much as you can
Hmm.
in that 8 months. Now, I want to just say one thing about something you said a few minutes ago that's relevant to this, which is full discretionary is never zero. If you try to drop your full discretionary to zero, you'll fail. And what ends up happening is you fail so heartily, so badly that you end up spending more. And so my mother is 90 years old. She spends $300 to $350 a month on just stuff I don't even know what she's spending it on, right? It's never zero. So
Hmm.
what you want to do is understand what it was when you were just a couple or maybe you're single and then what it's going to be with the baby. And it's going to be a couple $100 a month for the first 4 to 6 months of that baby's life on just the random stuff, right?
Hmm.
Get ready, but it will never be reduced to zero. So make sure you have some money for things that are discretionary.
Yes, things always pop up. I just, granted, I know it's coming, but it's school picture time again. You
Sure.
know, those
Oh,
things pop
yeah.
up. Or there's going to be a field trip, but we don't know how much it's going to cost until the field
And the
trip form
school
comes up.
fundraiser.
And the
Yeah. And the
school
school run,
fundraiser.
right?
Yes,
That's
exactly.
another one that's
A-
always there.
And the
Yeah.
spirit day that you find out the night before that you got to go run to the store and get a rainbow t-shirt because it's rainbow day at school.
All of it. All
All
of
of
it.
it.
And
Yes.
in addition, at least for some people, if your kid is in preschool, and I know with my daughter's preschool, they closed it at the drop of a hat. It was closed on Halloween. You had to get daycare for one day, or you had to get help for one day. So you always want to have that cash on hand because the cash will reduce the stress, which reduces the arguing and reduces the tension in the household, which is ultimately the best thing for the child anyway.
I think this is my next question, and it goes along with so much of what you said, but it's mindset because you're
Hmm.
talking a lot about stress reduction. How does our mindset play into financial planning? I know so many of us have baggage around money or these mindsets that we come into marriage with, and then maybe we're working to not pass those on to our children. How do you deal with that in financial planning?
So it's an excellent question. So the first thing I'm going to say is, people are like, how do we model the right stuff? So the
Hmm.
best way to model the right financial, behavior or mindset, whatever you want to call it, is by not being stressed about your finances. Even if you don't make that much, even if whatever your job, your income is lumpy, whatever it is, if you're living beneath your means, if you're spending less than you earn, you're 90% of the way there. That's the secret. It's just not very sexy.
Hmm.
There aren't a lot of influencers out there talking about spending less than you earn.
For
They're
sure.
talking about crypto because that's much more fun to talk about. But the mere fact that you habitually and consistently spend less than you earn and therefore have a lot less stress than other people in other households, that's what that kid is going to notice. And if you say to your spouse, I don't think we should do that this month, let's do it next month, that kid is going to retain that. He or she is going to remember, oh, adults make trade offs. I guess I have to make a trade off too. And then you're done. You've done your work. Because that kid is never going to overspend or, because he or she gets that whole thing. Now, lots of times people marry people who are big savers and they're big spenders and things their energy doesn't match. If I may quote my high school child, the energy doesn't match. And that happens all the time. And so the best way to kind of deal with that is if you know how much you can spend each month on discretionary, both of you feel empowered because you know you're sticking to the plan as long as you're within that amount.
Hmm.
The saver can't get upset because you're saving and you can point to exactly how much you're saving each month. The spender can't get upset because the spender is told how much he or she has as long as they're in communication with the rest of the household, and everybody goes off happy. So, what I want to talk about now is that word happy. The most important thing to your finances is your happiness, period. If you are not happy with your relationship, your job, your body, your relationship to your mother, whatever it is, you will spend more and your finances will take a beating on this. So I encourage people to find some happy. And I don't mean, oh, I just bought the newest pair of shoes and now I'm happy for 5 minutes. I mean satisfaction happy. If you hate your job, and you mentioned that earlier, that, yeah, sometimes people just, they hate what they're doing or whatever it is, get something else, even if the pay is less, because you'll still be a financial winner because you're more satisfied with what you're doing. And that kid is going to see that. If I'm unhappy, I make positive change and I get myself some happy. And the finances will just follow course right behind you.
As you were saying that, I was just thinking about different seasons in my life and my spending habits. And I was like, yep, nailed it. When I am unhappy, I definitely spend more money. I,
It's almost like I do this for a living.
yes, I
Hmm.
stop, I stop and get the coffee because, oh, I need a pick me up today.
Because you need the jolt of, not the jolt of caffeine, but the jolt of
The,
happy, the jolt of
mm-hmm,
dopamine.
exactly.
And, my wealthiest clients, they live simply and they're totally happy doing so. And then
Yes.
they accumulate millions. And I mean that, millions.
I love all of that. And we're really talking a lot about our values here too. So aligning our values with our financial goals.
Yeah.
And how do you counsel people about that as well?
Well, I mean, there's aligning your values with your investments, which is a separate conversation. But I mean, theoretically, at least, we're all living our values day in and day out.
Hmm.
And I encourage people to do that. And if there's certain values one of the values that I hope to live in front of my daughter is prioritizing things, not being scattered all over the place and doing a million different things, but like we're all prioritizing X, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And so as a family, we're focused on getting that done. And making sure that you do prioritize things, and that's super important for your finances, right? Because if you're just throwing money at every little thing, you're going to spend it all. It's going to be all consumed. But if you know that, say, I don't know, extra resources for your child who has ADHD, if that's an important thing, and those are expensive, if that's a really important thing for the family, then there might be less travel soccer. But you're all on board. I say this all the time. Somebody with two or three kids and one kid gets into Stanford, everyone's going to Stanford. Everybody's on this journey with that kid because everyone's going to have to sacrifice. And so to me, that's living your values. You want to just make sure you're living what you want this kid to absorb because they will absorb all of it.
I have just loved this conversation because I feel like you've already simplified my mindset around my money so
Good.
much more. You've made it simpler because I think we overcomplicate motherhood. We can overcomplicate our finances for sure. Before we leave, I want you to talk to the mama that's feeling super overwhelmed with her finances right now and just kind of leave her with a little encouragement or advice as she moves forward.
So the first thing I would say is if you can, try to relax about it. Because when daycare is done, all the birds start singing and the rainbows come out and the clouds open, financially, that is. It's temporary. I want people to hear me say that. That initial onslaught, especially if you have, I don't know what, a difficult sleeper or something like that. You have some extra needs when the kid is newborn and you just feel like money's going out of your wallet constantly. It's temporary. Get done what you need to get done to keep your peace of mind and your happiness. We just talked all about that. And then we'll pick up the pieces once whatever this kind of thing is, once we get past it. But you will get past it.
Yes, that's something I say as a doula all the time. This is temporary. It is a season. We will get through it. And most often we come out better on the other side for
On the
it.
other side. Yeah. That's an ancient philosophy, actually.
Yes, absolutely. Lori, can you share where my listeners can find you, talk about your company
Sure.
and all of those things?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to do so. So, my company is called Fearless Finance, right? It's all baked right into the name. We are hourly financial planners, so you can come and it's all virtual, and we work nationwide, any state, and Americans living abroad is fine too. You can come and get a financial plan with us and pay by the hour. You don't need to sign over your investments. You don't need to worry about being sold a bunch of things, and you don't need to have a certain amount of net worth or income. So we're who you ask when you need help with your finances. Everything's going along fine and the basement floods and the plumber says it's a $20,000 fix. Where do you turn? Well, it's not the big guys who want to manage all the money. It's us. And we're going to take care of where you find that $20,000 and how you get that basement fixed. So you can find us at fearlessfinance.com. Just set up the whatever the contact sheet, and if you want to, they can put Bruner in the promo code, and I'll give everyone $50 off their first meeting. So that's no problem at all. And if you want to find us on socials, it's Fearless Finance on Instagram and TikTok. And it's also on all the other socials, but those are the ones we're most active on.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love this concept because there's nothing quite like it out there that you can just get this hourly
That's
advice
right.
and when you need it and what you need it for versus and not having a minimum of you need to be a millionaire in order to work with
That's
you all.
right.
So
No question is too small and no problem is too big for us.
love that. So, if you are looking for some advice as you are walking into motherhood or maybe a new season of motherhood, please reach out to Lori and her team. I think they will be a great help to you. And thank you so much again for your time today, Lori.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the A Bridge to Motherhood podcast. I'm so glad you were here today. If you loved this episode, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a review for the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Share it with a friend or snap a screenshot and tag me on social media. If you decide to leave me a review, go to abridgetomotherhood.com/review. That link is also in the show notes so that I can send you a little gift in the mail. Your support helps other moms to find the podcast, and it truly means the world to me. Remember, your motherhood journey deserves your care and attention. Until next time, keep showing up for yourself, mama, and don't worry, I'm here to help every step of the way. See you soon.